Hi, this is Monica Sanford. Welcome to Vantage Point, the podcast that talks to people in the area about issues concerning you. And my guest today is Cris Dosev, a Marine Corps combat veteran, honorably serving 10 years in the Marine Corps as a bombardier navigator. And for reference, for those of you that don't know, that's Top Gun. That's Goose. Everybody loves Goose. And you just recently came back from D.C. It must have been pretty cool to see your combat aircraft actually up in the Smithsonian. Huge family man, has 5 girls, 2 sons?
3 sons.
3 sons, 2 of Marines or all 3 Marines?
2.
2 of Marine Corps, been married over 30 years. Everybody knows my husband's a Marine too. Me and all of us are part of the same Marine Corps League, so I see you at different functions, events. You're super involved in veteran activities. We know a lot of the same people, Lieutenant Colonel Glassman, Major Lee Stuckey with the Hero Foundation. So you're everywhere. You're very involved with not just Marine Corps, but all veteran activities. And you were very instrumental in renaming our bridge after a local veteran, General Chappie James. And you have a background in real estate development and engineering, which will actually come up again when we talk about infrastructure. But did I leave anything out? And before we get started on the questions.
No, you pretty much covered my bio. I'm a very, very happy resident of East Hill. We've been here permanently since 2009, and a number of our children have graduated from Sacred Heart Grammar School and also graduated from Catholic High. We just love living here. And
you are currently a candidate for...
That's right. I'm a candidate for House District 2.
There you go. So, all righty. So let's get to a few questions. We have a bunch to cover today. So thank you for being here. A couple of years ago, we're going to just clear this up off the get-go. A couple of years ago, in an attempt to, I am not sure, to distract or distance. Right now, the question is, do you support Donald Trump?
Most certainly. And I always have. From the start of his candidacy, I have. And I let people know that clearly. It was quite the phenomenon when he first showed up here in the South in Mobile, and I put people on notice to let them know that he would end up being the candidate, and he was. And in my opinion, even then, he was the only candidate that would be able to defeat Hillary Clinton in a general election.
Yeah, and you supported it. You donated. I mean, you're a big supporter of Donald Trump.
And on Election Day, I was up at Walnut Hill, putting out his signs in front of polling places. I was hustling for Donald Trump. And I got to tell you, I was extremely pleased at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
when that victory
I think
occurred.
We all were, yeah. So, or most of us were. Okay, so since 2015-ish, you have been running for some kind of office or in the political arena in some way, shape, or form. Like you said, even campaigning for other Republicans, running for office against Jeff Miller, Matt Gaetz. What do you think? The 2-part question, which I know some people hate, but a lot of those votes you got against Gaetz, about 30% or so, where did they come from? Were they all around this district? And what always kept you from going to the next level and winning any of those campaigns?
Well, the first thing, I never ran against Jeff Miller. If you recall, it became an open seat.
Right.
And so there were about 7 people in that race. We were very proud of our efforts in that race and what we accomplished. We received about 20,000 votes just behind Senator Evers, who was a sitting senator here. Very popular figure here. People really loved Senator Evers, God rest his soul. So
you're used to running against incumbents, too.
Well, yeah, in a sense, yeah. Right. Yeah, and keep in mind, this is when you enter into a political arena. I think no matter where you are, especially when you have, say, very well-known figures in those communities, it's not easy to break in, especially first, second, even in a third attempt. But at the same time, I look at my efforts here. Maybe I'm naive, okay, but I know this. I've been taught since the time we were in grammar school at civics lessons, right, that when you have the opportunity to serve your country, and if you feel as though you're qualified and you have the experience and the wisdom, that you do that. You step up.
Right.
And that's what I did. And I know some people think that might be foolish of me, but I can't imagine how anyone would think that. No,
competition is great for everybody.
That's right.
But the 30% or so, 31% in your last election, where did the majority of those votes come from?
Right in and around this vicinity, between Gulf Breeze, Pensacola Beach, East Hill, North Hill, in essence, Pensacola proper metro area.
Okay. So
Escambia County.
Well, going back to 2018 Pensacola News Journal article that Andy Marlette said, talking about this area and this kind of demographics that we're going to get into. The article said, and this is not a direct quote, you can go back and look at the article if don't email or call me and say I got it wrong. So it's that he pretty much said that you probably don't appeal to those that sip drinks at Fish House fundraisers, but more to the families that either have family members or are buried in Barrancas. To me, that's a powerful, positive statement that you are appealing to that type of base. But here's the question: how do you reach all of D2? How do you get appeal to? You have kind of this Christian veteran, Second Amendment type base that follows you,
right?
And how do you reach the others?
Well, I'm sort of. I don't know how my credentials wouldn't appeal to universally to most people within this district. I mean, I've been a dedicated family man for the last 30-some years, going on 34 years. In addition to that, I served my country on active duty for 10 years. Our children are pretty well accomplished. I mean, 2 of them are now serving in their country's armed forces as Marine officers. The rest of our children have done very well in school. The people in the community know of our family, and there's nothing I could say other than I'm very proud of them. I would think that in and of itself, as they say, you can judge the tree by its fruit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I would imagine that would be pretty universally accepted by anybody, that they would want to
just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, and I would think that people would want to have somebody that's raised a family, has run a business, has served his country. I don't know how I would not be appealing to any person wanting to vote for someone with integrity, that knows how to work hard, and wants to represent the community. Good.
And you actually said, and when you made the statement that you were coming out to run, that you wanted to have a bright future, and you were looking for leadership that respected law and environment, things like that. Let's go straight into your opponent, Alex Andrade. He is, as respectful of the law, being an attorney himself, and a possible opponent if you get to the general election. Diane Crummell is very into environmental. So there is, those are things you're going to have to tackle through, people that protect the law, people that protect the environment, things like that. But you have said actually that you supported Diane Crummell.
Well, no, I support her efforts with regards to the beach. And because I think, ever since I came to Florida in 1980, it never would have occurred to me that you could not walk on the beach unhindered anywhere in Florida. That's the appeal.
Good.
Right? Yeah, that is the appeal. And so I applaud her efforts in defending people's ability to get to the beach, particularly Pensacola Beach. And I think that all the beaches in Florida should be accessible to people. It doesn't just simply affect residents. The way I perceive our beaches, particularly here in the Panhandle, to me, these are national treasures. In my mind, they're no different than the monuments that we're familiar with. Yellowstone, right. Yosemite. Yeah. We have had the privilege of not only being here to enjoy them as residents, but we have an obligation to make sure that they're available for other people, our fellow Americans to enjoy.
Right. Just we're going to invite all these people here and then not let them walk on our beach.
There you go. There you go. It's a silly notion,
Yeah, exactly. So back to Alex Andrade real quick, because I'm not going to be, of course, the last one to ask you any of these questions about Alex. What are you going to say to the people that are supporting him as far as him going in first term, and he seems that he is on a blazing hot trail right now? He's either proposed or co-sponsored different legislations. Some have, they've died or got vetoed, but a lot of them, that his line item, things that he's gone through, health subcommittees and HHS committees, and got appropriations for local things like the NFA and places like that, and Andrews bringing money to here. So right. What are you going to say to his supporters?
That's a typical move on the part of the folks in Tallahassee that want to keep an incumbent that they've, in essence, settled here in their pocket. They're going to give him the opportunity to bring money back into an area. And I just can't imagine that once I'm elected, that they wouldn't be doing the same thing for me. I mean, who in their right mind would deny an application from ARC Gateway?
Right.
They're doing God's work there. And to think that now if I, as a veteran, were to ask for that and make that same appeal, they would deny me. I don't think that's reality. So
speaking of God's work, we're going to touch on this because it can be a touchy subject, but me and you have talked about this before. So you just came back from D.C., like we said. You are a strong supporter of Donald Trump. He was at the same rally you were just at. It was supporting pro-life. That's right. Also have said you will wholeheartedly support Mike Hill's, District 1 Mike Hill's heartbeat bill. So some have seen you at different rallies, and you have a pocket constitution. I've seen you carry it around, and a proverbial Bible in the other hand. How does your faith play a role in your politics with keeping a separation of church and state? But talk about your faith a little bit and how that's going to govern.
Well, Monica, that's a very, very important question, particularly not only to me, but the people in this area. I know that they want to know clearly where you stand with your faith. everybody has an inspiration, and my inspiration, of course, is Jesus Christ. And how are we best introduced to him and what he means to a people of faith is through the Bible. And as far as a church and state question, it's almost as if though people are projecting a certain myth. You were talking about a letter from Thomas Jefferson, to Danbury Association of Connecticut, and from that one letter, there seems to be this notion that constitutionally there's this huge wall erected, and if that were in fact the case, and again, let's talk about inspiration for a moment. What part of the Bible, when it says, love thy neighbor as thyself, would you not want to have as part of our jurisprudence?
Right.
What part of thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not...
Right, and some are very
covet.
absolute.
These are absolutes, and so it's nonsensical to think that the inspiration for the Constitution and what they wrote in the Declaration of Independence didn't come from our Bible. And so
but you also want to be all-inclusive to people that pray in their own way or spiritual in their own way without coming across as either righteous or entitled, because I am a rosary-carrying Catholic, so I get it. So, to me it is, I go back to kind of the 1960 John F. Kennedy, and even though he's a Democrat, still love him.
And a very conservative man.
Yeah. And some may say in private had possible indiscretions, but that's for another show. He spoke to the Greater Houston Ministerial Association full of Protestant ministers, and he was a devout Catholic. He just said that, national decisions should be made in the national interest without religious pressures.
Well, he was specifically addressing their concern that he would be taking orders from the Vatican.
Correct.
And the Pope.
Right.
So it wasn't that they were concerned about him, not adhering to Christian values and principles. Okay, they just wanted to make sure that he wasn't going to be following the Pope, because after all, he is the executive of our nation, our republic.
Right.
And so he made that clear.
He did, and he made it very clear it's not, and this is from him, the actual transcript from the show is, it's not what church I believe in, it's what kind of America I believe in. So we're going to do what's best for all of America.
That's right.
No matter what church you
That's
believe
right.
in. We're just trying to let everybody get heard and no religious intolerance. Alrighty, so next, tell us a little bit about your gun control Second Amendment stance.
It shouldn't really be all that controversial, and especially in this district. You'll find that most of the people here are very, very strong advocates for the Second Amendment, and they clearly understand that it's not a matter of the government providing us rights. They recognize it as God-given rights, and that the Constitution defends that notion, and that those folks that think that the government has given these rights to us as citizens of the United States are not correct. They're incorrect. And as a result, I strongly believe that they are in fact God-given rights. The control is at the government. Is on the government side. They have no right to infringe on our rights to carry arms.
So are there any restrictions, if any, what on gun ownership or gun carrying laws, are there any restrictions that...
Well, I could think of one right off the bat.
Okay.
I wouldn't be selling guns to foreign nationals, okay, that are here from countries that are, say, less than amenable to our way of life.
Right.
Okay. As an example, the NAS Pensacola shooting. Why would anybody sell a pistol to a guy from Saudi Arabia that had a hunting license? Why not a long? If the guy's really truly looking to hunt, he should have got a rifle or a shotgun, and that was I think a breach of common sense, and that's first restriction. Second restriction would, again, these are foreign nationals; they're not American citizens.
And just to say, I am not, of course, read into the intel of exactly what happened and exactly, how it was sold, what was the loophole, things like that. So I can't speak to that until all the information comes out.
The information is out, just so you know. The information is out.
I mean, they're having another press conference today, I think. But
really? Okay.
They are. So it was, until, because this gun shop that sold this, he is a local. So I'm not going to throw him under the bus right now or ever, but, we need all the information. Yeah. But to go back to it, yes, it is a hot button topic right now with, internationals being here training.
Yeah, and again, I'm not opposed to training foreign nationals. We have a lot of commitments to our allies, and we have a commitment to Saudi Arabia also.
And we travel and train all across the world too.
Right, and there's no, if it were up to me, I would send all the Saudi nationals home. We can train them there in Saudi Arabia. We've been training people around the world on many occasions, to include Saudi Arabia. And my concern, my greatest concern is this: for the sake of our alliance, all right, for the sake of our alliance, we can't afford to have an incident like this happen again on American soil. Parents understand inherently the risk that their children take upon themselves when they join the military, and they're willing to accept that risk. Parents are willing and they understand it and are willing, but they're not willing to accept their sons and daughters training on American soil and being killed by an ally.
Right. That was, of course, more than unfortunate. It was just an extreme case that
it was a terrorist attack.
It was a terrorist attack. So I don't know.
What it is.
Right now, everybody is kind of still speechless.
Right. I'm still stunned by it. And I'm very heartbroken. I can't imagine being one of these parents that after. It was just, in one case, I think, like just 6 weeks earlier, that he graduated from boot camp. So you are.
I can't even imagine the moms
and now you're
and
burying your son. I mean, tragic.
All right. So let's go into what your vision is for D2. The growth. We had talked about you being having a background in real estate development and being an engineer. Where do you say? I just came actually from my Rotary meeting this morning, and Grover Robinson was talking. Our Mayor Robinson was saying, so much growth coming to the city and the county and different projects and all around this entire area. So, what is your challenge here, and what's your vision for D2 as far as infrastructure?
I'm so happy you asked that question. Yep. As a developer, and I did a number of development projects, smaller projects in the city of Chicago proper. And one of the arguments I would get into all the time with local area officials, they would not want to deal with density. They thought that was the worst thing. There's too many people in a particular neighborhood, which is the farthest thing from the truth when you look at our geographic situation here in Pensacola. I'm a big believer of infill. But at the same time, a lot of the people moving down here, move from outside the area, want to have the amenities of living out, and having their 5 acres or 20 acres and not being up against their neighbors. There's plenty of room to do that. So first, let's talk about infill. There are plenty of opportunities within the city of Pensacola of homes and areas that can be redeveloped in a sense, because some of these structures are so old and so decrepit that all it would do is assist Pensacola. You'd have a greater tax base.
Right.
In addition to that, and I'm very sensitive to this, what it really does is it provides people that start small businesses.
Right. It's a huge
customers.
Incentive. Yeah, right. It's a huge incentivizing with builders and businesses.
Well, and it's the guy that opens up the hot dog stand, the guy that opens up the breakfast place, the guy that has the cleaners. Without people, without customers, you're done. And so by by allowing people to come into the area like Southtown, right? You see how it's going to transform. And there's another project that's going into the other the building that they're just in the process of tearing down. And so that's another, I think, a couple hundred more units. All that stuff is very,
from De Villiers to downtown, and I mean it's going to be a huge, like, the buzzword now across all of city and county, of course, is walkability and travelability. That people are going to be able to bike and walk to all these different places.
Right.
But it just definitely has to be managed correctly.
So that's
and
the
structural
interior.
and that's incremental changes.
Right. So. That's the interior D2. But when you get out a little bit further, now we don't go out as far as Beulah, right? Okay. But that area, people that live in D2 work out there,
right?
Whether at Navy Federal or whatever else, other say companies we may be able to get to draw into the area. So there are going to be issues with the infrastructure out there, the road networks. You look at Pace, for instance, Woodbine Road. Again, it's outside of D2, but people are coming in and out from those areas. It's going to have an impact. I tell people all the time, if you're looking to live near Pensacola, you live and work in the area, it's in your best interest to look within Pensacola first, just because we don't really have the traffic problems outside of our perimeter.
Coming into Pensacola.
Coming into Pensacola, right?
So it's the economic development, like you said, up to Santa Rosa, even Okaloosa. There are people coming from all over the place to work and live and play here and to spend money here, and we want to make it easy for them.
Right, exactly.
So what is your biggest challenge when all those people are coming here? I know you had mentioned when we talked earlier about then you get into the public safety and the public transportation, things like that. But what is your main challenge then with all those people coming in after it's built? Say it's built, the businesses are here, the people are here.
Well, then the biggest challenge is to keep people happy, I suppose. I mean, make sure their taxes are low. Make sure they're not being overly regulated. A lot of people talk about, I want to get to Tallahassee. I've got all these bills I want to submit. I'm thinking to myself, people don't want more laws.
Right.
All right. They want less laws. They want less government control. So let's talk about home rule for a moment. We're adults here. The mayor of, last I checked, Grover Robinson's not a teenager running this city. When a mayor of a municipality the size of Pensacola decides he wants to do something, he shouldn't be preempted by laws and regulations by the state. And it's the same thing with the counties. And I think that we hire, in essence, we elect county commissioners, we elect a mayor, and we have a strong mayor here now. I would make sure to do everything I could to allow them to run their municipalities and their counties, because, as they say, the government that's closest to the people is the best, and those are the people that we as residents of D2 or D1, we should rely on the management of this community.
What have you seen that your opponent, or anybody, mainly your opponent, because we're talking about you running, that he has shown where the decision making would have been different than you? You say age and wisdom and experience.
The first thing right off the bat is this, the issue with regards to the 5G towers. I mean, they're placing them everywhere,
right,
without any real, any input by the municipality, and people are getting upset about that kind of thing. And those are kinds of things that are imposed by Tallahassee because folks there, right, at the end of the day, right, lobbyists know where it is they need to go and who it is they need to fund and provide, say, campaign contributions to allow them to do things that supersede what I believe to be the authority of the mayor and county commissioners. That's not right.
Okay. So what do you think you are going to bring different or special, or why toe-to-toe, head-to-head?
Toe-to-toe, I mean, I would be representing the interests of people of Northwest Florida in this district, and not necessarily attempting to maneuver myself politically and become and kowtow to folks in South Florida. This is the Panhandle. The Panhandle has always sort of gotten the short end of the stick, and I would advocate strongly that people in this community keep in mind Congressional District 1 is the largest veterans district in the country. with 110,000 veterans here. And most of these folks are not from here. Okay, but it doesn't matter where they're from, because after spending 10 or 20 or 30 years in the service of their country, moving from one end of the earth to the other, in a lot of cases, right. This is home. And they should have the same voice and the same access to the funds and or the control of their community as anybody else in Florida does. Just because they decided to make this home doesn't mean that they're not as equal in the eyes of the law as anybody else is in Florida that may have been here for 40 or 50 years.
Yeah.
Or 60.
And we have come back and forth numerous times with the Marine Corps, off and on in Florida for 40 years. Yeah. So,
and you've decided to make it home.
Yeah, exactly. So, so I would say all my listeners are super, super smart. So they all know their representatives, but a lot of people do not know what district they live in. They don't know who the representative is. So this is going to help, but I urge everybody to go out and find, what district you are in, who's your representative, and so how are you going to get the word out to even the parts of the. We had talked about this, and you have kind of Marines knocking on doors type thing. What is your whole realm of demographics you have in D2?
Well,
from the beach to
Pensacola Beach, Gulf Breeze, just shy of the Garcon Point Bridge, so just west of that, probably about a mile, and so all of Gulf Breeze proper, and then Pensacola, as you follow Fairfield, in essence, all the way out to the Floribama. That's D2.
Oh wow!
So it's a pretty significant stretch of land there, but we're talking about 120 square miles of land. To put things in comparison, Congressional District 1 had 4,800 square miles, and we worked that pretty effectively. So I think that the diminishing size will be to my advantage. We know what it is we've done in the past. Our team is excited, and they're really excited that they can work right and around home as opposed to going out to Niceville and Fort Walton Beach and all these other places that would take us over an hour, sometimes an hour and a half to get to. So now it's within walking distance. It's very nice.
So real quick, how did the Marine Corps shape your life? Everybody knows that I've been married to a Marine for 30 years, and it completely changed our life, but and his life, of course, but him coming from a small town to be a Marine Corps officer that he was prior enlisted, then a Marine Corps officer, completely changes your life. How did it change your life?
Well, I got to tell you, since I was a little kid, like 12 and a half, 13 years old, I always had aspirations of becoming a Marine Corps officer. How did it change my life? Well, it was a wake-up call when you show up at officer candidate school, right? And you're getting woken up at 4:30 in the morning. And so it imparted a certain discipline, but what it really imparted after having spent time in the fleet is an incredible sense of love and obligation to the country, and understanding full well that once you took that oath, it wasn't some temporary issue. This was an oath you took for the rest of your life to defend the Constitution and the people of your country. And so that's why I've decided to enter into these races. At some point in time, just because you spend a certain amount of time in the military doesn't mean that training, that dedication doesn't correlate into future service in office. Right.
So it's in you.
It's an obligation. It's part of my being,
right. It's your DNA to be a Marine Corps officer, and now, run for office and serve your community.
And I still consider myself a professional officer. Yeah. On September 11th, I was already out of the service, but the day, September 12th, I was calling my old command to see whether or not they needed me. So as they say, you run to the roar, right? And at any moment in time, I still feel like I'm prepared to serve if they needed me. Yeah,
it is a different mindset, definitely.
It is.
So, well, first of all, closing, I want to ask you first, who's your favorite sports team? And what does Cris Dosev do for fun besides watch sports?
Well, I'm a Florida graduate, so I'm a big fan of the Gators, and it was wonderful to see them ranked ahead of Alabama this year, But being from Chicago, I'm a diehard Chicago Bears fan.
We love Alabama too. I have to say that from my producer.
My wife, on the other hand, is a huge Saints fan. She loves Drew Brees and what he represents, and that's a big team around here. Everybody likes the Saints.
Oh, cool. And professional, you're rooting for who in the big game?
The Chiefs. My in-laws are from Kansas City. And so I by default, I have to root for the Chiefs.
I was for the Texans, but maybe next year. All righty. So, and the last minute, you have someone knock on somebody's door, you have 30 seconds to talk to them and give them your contact info and your 30-second spiel. Go.
Well, I'm your neighbor. I love living in Pensacola. I love Northwest Florida. I want to see a bright future for our community. I think it needs to be managed properly. It requires leadership. It requires wisdom. I'm a devoted Christian, and I support the Second Amendment. I'm pro-life without reservation, and I hope that those credentials would convince people to vote for me and recognize that I would do my best to represent them in Tallahassee.
Very good. What's your contact info if somebody wants to keep track of you right now?
The best way is my cell phone number is 850-324-5544. That's 324-5544. And from there, you could text me or call. And we'll be having a website up here soon. It'll be under Cris Dosev. We haven't quite delineated whether it's HD2, but once you type it in, you'll get to it.
And you're on Facebook. I don't know. Are you maxed out on Facebook? Can you have other followers?
I'm pretty much maxed out, but we're going to have a separate Facebook page for the campaign.
Well, very good. Thank you so much for coming on. This was very informative.
Thank you, Monica.
Can't wait to blast it out to everybody. So thank you, listeners. This is Monica Sanford with Vantage Point.